What if I told you that somewhere in the depths of space, there's a planet that's been watching us back? That telescopes have captured something so unsettling, so impossibly organized, that it defies every law of nature we understand. Today, I'm going to tell you about a discovery so disturbing that it was buried by governments, dismissed by scientists, and forgotten by everyone except those brave enough to dig deeper into the cosmic horror that lurks beyond our solar system. This is the story of Kepler 447b, the planet that looked back in 2009. NASA launched the Kepler Space Telescope with one simple mission: find other worlds. What they found instead was something that would haunt the dreams of astronomers for years to come. Among the thousands of distant planets catalogued, one stood out, not for its size, not for its composition, but for something far more sinister. Kepler 447b sits 837 light-years away in the constellation Cygnus. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than another gas giant, roughly twice the size of Jupiter, orbiting its host star every 93 days. The initial data was unremarkable. Temperature readings, atmospheric composition, orbital mechanics, all perfectly normal. But then came the storm season of 2013. Dr. Elena Vasquez was working the night shift at the Kepler Operations Center when she first noticed the anomaly. The planet's atmospheric readings were fluctuating in ways that shouldn't be possible. Cloud formations were moving in patterns that seemed almost intentional. She adjusted the instruments, ran diagnostics, even had her colleague check the equipment. Everything was functioning perfectly. What she was seeing was real. The clouds on Kepler 447b were organizing themselves into geometric shapes, spirals that lasted for weeks, perfect circles that appeared and disappeared with clockwork precision. And then, on December 15, 2013, at exactly 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time, something appeared in the planet's atmosphere that would change everything. An eye, not just any eye, a perfect human eye, complete with iris, pupil, and what appeared to be eyelashes formed from wisps of methane and ammonia clouds. The formation was massive, spanning nearly 12,000 kilometers across the planet's northern hemisphere. It lasted for exactly 72 hours before dissipating. But not before every major telescope on Earth had turned to observe this impossible phenomenon. The images were stunning, terrifying, undeniable. But here's where the story gets truly disturbing. Within hours of the discovery going public, a coordinated effort began to suppress the information. The original images disappeared from NASA servers. Dr. Vasquez was reassigned to a desk job in administrative planning. Press releases were issued claiming the formations were simply pareidolia, the human tendency to see faces in random patterns, enhanced by poor image resolution and atmospheric interference. The cover-up was swift, efficient, and nearly complete. Amateur astronomers around the world had been tracking Kepler 447b independently. They had their own images, their own data, and their own questions. A network of researchers began to emerge, sharing information through encrypted channels. Afraid to speak publicly about what they'd witnessed, what they discovered was far worse than a single eye formation. The planet was developing more complex patterns. Eyes, yes, but also what appeared to be mouths, hands reaching through the clouds, and most disturbing of all, faces that seemed to track the movement of observing telescopes. When the Hubble telescope focused on the planet's southern hemisphere, cloud formations would shift to that region. When ground-based observatories in Chile pointed their instruments toward Kepler 447b, atmospheric disturbances would appear on the side of the planet facing Earth. The planet wasn't just forming random patterns, it was responding to observation. Dr. Marcus Chen, a former JPL atmospheric physicist who lost his security clearance after refusing to sign a non-disclosure agreement about his Kepler 447b research, managed to smuggle out data that painted an even more terrifying picture. The planet's magnetic field was fluctuating in binary patterns, ones and zeros, a code that, when translated, repeated the same message over and over again in perfect English. We see you seeing us. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. Independent researchers began to notice correlations between observation events and unexplained phenomena on Earth. Every time a major observatory focused on Kepler 447b, there were reports of mass bird deaths, electronic interference, and what witnesses described as watching sensations. In remote areas around the telescope facilities, people living near the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico reported seeing eye-shaped cloud formations appearing over their homes on the same nights the facility observed the distant planet. Security footage from the Very Large Telescope in Chile captured images of perfect eye shapes appearing in fog banks surrounding the facility, always positioned to face directly toward the observation domes. The most disturbing incident occurred at the Keck Observatory in Hawaii on the night of April 3, 2015, as astronomers prepared for a detailed observation session of Kepler 447b. Every electronic device within a 50-kilometer radius began displaying the same image: a massive human eye, blinking slowly, with what appeared to be tears streaming down an invisible face. The observation was cancelled. The data was classified. The witnesses were relocated. But amateur astronomers continued their work, driven by an obsession that bordered on madness. They documented everything: the evolution of the eye formations, the increasing complexity of the atmospheric messages, the growing sense that something vast and intelligent was studying them with the same intensity they were studying it. In 2017, a group of researchers calling themselves the Kepler Underground made a breakthrough that would shatter our understanding of reality itself. Using a network of small telescopes and open-source image processing software, they managed to create a time-lapse video covering for years of observations. What they discovered was that the atmospheric patterns weren't random formations at all. They were a single, continuous entity. The eye that appeared in 2013 hadn't disappeared. It had simply moved to the other side of the planet, out of view from Earth. Over the course of 4 years, this entity had been systematically examining every telescope pointed in its direction, learning our technology, studying our capabilities, and preparing for something that none of us were ready to comprehend. The time-lapse revealed the truth. Kepler 447b wasn't developing consciousness. It had always been conscious. The planet itself was a living eye, a massive organ of observation positioned perfectly to watch our galaxy, our solar system, and most specifically, us. The implications were staggering. If a planet could be conscious, could be watching us, what else might be out there? How many other worlds were observing our every move, cataloging our weaknesses, preparing for contact or conquest? The Kepler Underground published their findings on every platform they could access, flooding the internet with evidence before the inevitable suppression efforts could begin. But instead of vindication, they found something far more disturbing than government cover-ups or scientific denial. Indifference. The human mind, it seems, has limits to the cosmic horror it can process. Faced with undeniable evidence that we're being watched by entities beyond our comprehension, most people simply chose to ignore the information entirely. The few who did engage dismissed it as elaborate hoaxes, creative fiction, or the work of conspiracy theorists with too much time and too little sanity. But the observations continue. Every night, amateur astronomers around the world point their telescopes toward Kepler 447b and document what they see. The eye formations are becoming more frequent, more detailed, and more unmistakably intelligent. Recent images show what appears to be multiple eyes, suggesting that whatever consciousness inhabits that distant world is not alone. The most recent development occurred just last month. Dr. Sarah Kim, an astronomer at Seoul National University, detected radio signals originating from the Kepler 447 system. The signals are structured, purposeful, and appear to be increasing in strength. When translated, they contain astronomical coordinates for every telescope that has ever observed the planet, along with detailed technical specifications that suggest whoever is sending these messages understands our technology better than we do. But here's the truly terrifying part. The coordinates aren't just for telescopes. The most recent transmissions include GPS coordinates for the homes and workplaces of every astronomer who has ever studied Kepler 447b. They know who we are. They know where we live, and they're getting closer. Telescopes around the world have detected similar eye formations appearing on planets throughout our galaxy. What started as a single anomaly has become a network of watching worlds, all focused on Earth, all waiting for something that only they understand. The question isn't whether we're being watched anymore. The question is what happens when they decide they've seen enough. As I finish recording this video, I can't help but look up at the night sky and wonder if somewhere out there, something is looking back at me. 837 light years away, there's a planet-sized eye that has been studying us for longer than we can imagine. It knows our capabilities, our weaknesses, our location, and most disturbing of all, it's not alone. The next time you look up at the stars, remember that you might not be the only one doing the watching. In a universe full of wonders and terrors, beyond our imagination, we've discovered that the most frightening thing of all isn't the vast emptiness of space. It's the certainty that something vast and incomprehensible is staring back at us from that emptiness, waiting for the right moment to make contact. The planet that looked back has seen everything it needs to see. The only question now is what it plans to do with that knowledge, and whether we're ready for the answer.